Okay, so we're back, and we didn't give much warning to coming back, but I am here. I'm Joe Lissette. I'm still here. And I'm joined now. Julian Knab did a great job this morning, and Anurag Das is here to try and attempt to top him now, which is not going to be easy.
What's up, guys? It's me. I have had a cup and a half of coffee, so I am juiced up and ready to go. It's going to be great. I am super excited for the rest of this tournament. Okay. I've kept tabs of a couple of the games, so I was streaming earlier, but now here we are. I kept a couple tabs, and I did see some pretty incredible matches, like even from the round one pairing, which was like, you know, two legacy titans duking it out against each other, to the later rounds where we got to see like some decks that I'm personally close to, like Snow. And then even the last match was Dark Depths against this new Rug control deck that Daryl is playing, right? Is that what's going on? Yeah,
I think there's a few of them catching steam down in Legacy. Julian was talking about how that's probably what he would have played also, something like that, with the non-delver, you know, mid-rangey Rug deck, I think, with this the power, like the Uro and Oko together. I mean, there's free life gain, there's card advantage. There's just
it's ridiculous. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and there's cards that aren't that easy to deal with. It's exciting stuff. I mean, not as exciting as Isochron Scepter, Orm's Chant, Possibility Storm, but you can't have that every day. I don't know. Maybe we'll check in later on to see how that player is actually doing in the event, because I'm not sure. I know they were 2-1 at point, but yeah, maybe we'll see them on camera again. That would be super exciting. We had ninjas, I believe, in the top 8 last month. I think Isochron Possibility Storm would top that as far as unexpected.
Yeah, just like spice factor, creativity.
Yeah. But we've had all kinds of stuff today. We've had a lot of good matchups. I'm not sure what we have coming up for round 6, or even if it's ready to go yet. But in the meantime, what's been going on with you? I mean, it's been 3 weeks or a month since you were here last time. As far as like the format goes, like, have you changed what you're interested in? Have you changed what different cards have caught your eye in the last month?
Yes, I was hoping you would ask, because there was one stunning, handsome person in the chat who mentioned earlier about Shark Stompy, and I gotta say props to them, because Shark Typhoon is. I am just in love with this card. There's nothing better than just making an army of sharks and attacking in the air for lethal. I've been playing a lot of Snow still. I think, Snow is kind of just it's like the 2020 version of Miracles in my eyes. You still get to play some sort of control, but you just ramp up with cards like Astrolabe. You've got Oko and Uro, and then you can change it up a little bit if you want to add like Narset. Like we saw earlier, or like Julian may have been talking about, the Poke Pile, as it's called, has Dreadhorde Arcanist in it. And I, did a lot of self-introspection on what was going on with the format and why, because for a time, Snow wasn't actually doing too well. There was a brief period where it just like fell off the map entirely. And if you look at the metagame at the time, it makes sense, right? Rug Delver is probably one of the, if not the best deck. And it was featuring cards like Winter Orb and Klothys. You had all these Veil of Summer combo decks running around. And generally speaking, like, the metagame was really hostile. Like, even these tribal decks like Elves and Goblins and even Esper Vile were finding ways to just beat up on the de facto control deck of the format. And I wasn't really happy with that. So I basically took the deck, sat down, and I was like, well, what's going on? What's working? What's not working? Icefang Coatl is a card that I think people just look at and they're just like, okay, this does a lot, right? It gets value, it blocks, you draw a card, you're up cards. But I kind of felt like against the whole shebang of decks that are out there that we were, that the metagame was presenting to us, Icefang just wasn't cutting it. Wow. So I ended up like going lower and lower and lower, and eventually I just cut the card. One of the big reasons that I didn't like the card, or maybe let's just talk like macro strategy of Snow to begin with, right? When I started playing the deck, I really saw it as this Sylvan Library / Uro Nature of Titan's Wrath deck that would just like draw a ridiculous amount of cards. What do you want? I'm a control player. That's just what we do, right?
Hey man, I'm a control player and I have no interest in drawing cards.
What? All right. Well,
I've won thousands of matches with no cards in hand with Miracles.
Yeah, but let's be real here. I see you using Goblin Lackey and Muxus and Food Chain on the side.
Yeah, I know, it's the same. I want my stuff on the board. I don't need it in my hand.
That's true. Well, to be fair, okay, yeah, maybe that's where all my cards end up anyways, because Shark Typhoon God, okay, we'll get into it. So anyways, the macro aspect was, Sylvan Library plus Uro. And I just feel like that's not enough. It's pretty linear strategy once you think about it. It's very easy to just go after the Uro. And then, Oko alone, I feel, has become a lot. It's still a very powerful card, but I think the metagame has definitely found ways to handle Oko or, just adapt and minimize the impact of it, even if it's just a little bit. Certain decks that, can't fight Oko have slowly phased out of the metagame. So, for example, we don't see a lot of Death and Taxes. But the decks that are still here either just don't care about it or have really good ways to fight it, or they're just leveraging it itself. And, it's just going back and forth there. So I didn't like the linearity of the version of Snow. I ended up adding Shark Typhoon as an extra win condition to give you a little bit of, diversity in how you play. And it's been great so far.
Okay. All right, so we are ready to go on with round 6 after Honor's little tirade about the glories of Shark Typhoon. We'll probably get into that more because I have the sense you could talk about it for quite a bit more.
Oh, yes.
But for round 6, our matchup here, we're going to start out with... okay, there we go. Oh, okay. Okay, straight to the match. All right, we'll get deck lists when we get a chance. Pedro with Bant Miracles, okay. Against Andrew Fiedler with Sneak and Show. So first show and tell deck we've seen today. Okay, so we're still looks like the beginning of the games can develop very slowly. If we have a chance, can we just pop the deck list up for a few seconds on each one so we have an idea what's going on since the players are just easing into the game? Okay, so with Sneak and Show deck, let's see how stock is this. We have a Wish package, which probably means we have Omniscience. We do. Okay. Other deck, let's go. Just try and get us an idea of what's going on here. We saw Ice Fang Quaddle. Okay, so Honorog does not like Pedro Pereira's deck, we can assume.
This this looks like Stephanogs' recent list that has been tearing up Magic Online in terms of miracles.
Okay.
And it looks like was it straight Bant? That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah. All right, cool. So now into round 6. Now... Pedro's on the bottom, I believe, with the Miracles deck. Okay.
Seems like a solid hand, that we've kept here. We've got Brainstorm to get rid of this Terminus. We just drew a second Force of Will, which is going to be insane against the combo deck. And then we also have like a mid-game Teferi that we can deploy to, make our counter magic one-sided.
Right. Yeah. We're going to presumably easily win this fight as there's only 3 cards in the show and tell deck's hands. And then really what we need here is just a fetch land to get rid of this Terminus and get our 3rd land going. And
absolutely.
Okay, because of the Astrolabe, we're still able to deploy the Teferi. So we can kind of get what we need. But
it's tricky. I actually really like Mythic Snarf's play there where they just went for it on turn 2, made the opponent have it.
Yeah.
The format that we're playing with today is a little bit tricky because it is open deck list. So, the Miracles player did know that they were playing against Sneak and Show, and as such, they were, very likely to have a Force of Will. They'd mulligan towards it. They don't want to die on turn 2. They're developing their board here with Teferi and Astrolabe. This was a pretty nice trick where they were able to use the Teferi to bounce the Astrolabe to draw more cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then with Dovin's Veto and Force, we're looking really good. I'm a little surprised here that I assume that we're fetching because we want to play Oko and just get it on the board. I feel like I would have brainstormed and got rid of the 2 white cards in my hand and also left open Dovin's Veto, but I guess we don't really need it because Force can defend against anything with the Teferi on the board, so it's good all point. Fine.
And also, I think the Sneak and Show player has missed a land drop, right? So it could just be that we're smelling blood in the water and going for the throat as fast as we can. Oko is a ridiculously fast clock, especially in this sort of deck, which does have an ample amount of counter magic to sort of protect itself from the combos that, are in Legacy. Brainstorm here is going to pick up.
That's fine. There's no shuffle, but yeah, we have enough counters. We probably don't need it.
Yeah, we might end up even using the Ponder here to just manually the DIY shuffle.
Yeah. Or we could leave the Terminus floating so we could Miracle on the Brainstorm in case some bizarre thing happened, although I can't even imagine what that would be.
Yeah. Also, with Teferi ticking up, Ponder could be cast at instant speed so that we don't draw the Terminus. This is all sick. This is beautiful what I'm watching right here. I gotta say, it does make me want to play a little bit of Control, old-fashioned styled, if you feel me.
Mm-hmm. I'm a little surprised we kept on that Ponder, because I didn't feel like any of these cards are worth much. But, I mean, there's more Astrolabe and more basic land. I don't know that we want those, and then we're stuck with the Terminus. But, okay, we're moving right along, and really just, I think we're dead on the board next turn, and it's unlikely things will change dramatically in the meantime.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is, because it's a lethal setup.
Yeah, I use the Astrolabe allows you to knock a turn off. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And game 1 in the books. Okay.
That was so fast as well. Oh my goodness. I gotta say, watching Miracles play, or just Control players in general, play super quickly is like always pleasant. You know, just like the knowing what's good, knowing what's bad. I guess we'll take a look at sideboards pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we're going to leave it here and watch how the featured player sideboards, and then we'll move to the other deck list.
Makes sense.
So it looks like Veils, Carpets, there's a lot of tools here.
Yeah. That's almost the entire sideboard. The Back to Basics and Relics not so good, but we see pretty clearly take out all the spells that are good against creatures and bring in all the spells that are good against combo. How do you feel about bringing in Carpet of Flowers in this matchup?
I think it's fine. It can allow you to, I think the big plus is that it allows you to play your Planeswalkers while leaving your mana available for the opponent's turn. Because otherwise, it's pretty hard to commit to tapping out for Jace or I guess Oko or any of them with the risks you're running when the other player untaps, especially now after boarding with. Let's go ahead and look at the other list instead of having to try and see it on there. So we're not splashing green for Veil of Summer here, but we do have Boseiju.
Yeah, and Boseiju is a ridiculous card in the matchup because it's just these sort of control decks. The one aspect of Magic that they generally don't have is a way to attack mana with like Wasteland. Exactly, they don't play Wasteland, right? So Boseiju, getting into play and then untapping the next turn just reduces one layer of interactivity, which means it's definitely like a viable game plan. And it also allows the Sneak and Show player to take the game, a little bit longer than before. We saw in game 1 how they just went, turn 2, make them have it. The game is not going to get better for them if they, wait 15 turns, 30 turns or whatever. So now they may be able to, slow the pace of the game down, just cantrip, sculpt, mold, and then, fire off on one really explosive turn with the uncounterability that Boseiju provides.
Mm-hmm. It does also, because it's open deck list, and there's 2 Boseiju, it does give the Miracle side, with the Back to Basics in the sideboard, the consideration of boarding and Back to Basics to stop the Boseiju.
Yep.
I'm not sure that I would necessarily do that. I don't think I'd mind if a single copy came in. We can make the silly argument that's always made about every blue card. It's like, well, at least you could pitch to Forest, and that's true. And because it is a situational card that you might want, because Boseiju is hard, like you're saying, it's very hard to deal with, and that's a clean answer to it.
Yeah. And it looks like we did bring in one copy at least of Back to Basics. This hand seems pretty solid.
Yeah, and it was kept.
Yeah, light on lands, but we do have the power of Brainstorm to bail us out of this scenario.
And very safe with 2 pitch counters.
Exactly.
And a land, and the needle. Yeah, this looks real nice. Even 2 basics. And probably the needle is a card that's so nice against Sneak and Show. I remember years ago at a Star City Invitational, I was playing my Miracles deck against Brad Nelson playing Sneak and Show, and we went to game 3, and in game 3 I went Caracas into Python Needle, and he thought for about 15 seconds, and he's like, my deck, and he conceded. He's like, I boarded in a way that cannot beat that combination of cards, so we're done here.
That's actually hilarious.
So Python Needle is very strong at shutting down, obviously, the sneak attack portion, which is the haste portion. And then other than that, you're just shown telling at slow speed. Now, we don't have Caracas in... Well, maybe we do. I didn't look carefully at the lands as we jumped into Smash real quick. But I doubt there's Caracas, as it's not as commonly played anymore as it used to be.
Not enough legends, am I right?
I mean, now there's legends in your own deck. There's Uro right there. Uro plus Caracas is great.
I do fancy me the old 4-mana divination. You play Uro, then put the Caracas into play off the trigger, but bounce it before it sacrifices itself.
Yeah, that's why I tried out Miracles again, or not Miracles, but Legends again, like a month ago. I was like, I want to do this. Now we do see another symptom of the open deck lists is that the Syncro player, aware of the possibility of back to basics, is actually managed to get 2 basics in play here.
Yeah, super heads up getting the island off the Scalding Tarn here, playing around, knowing that they're putting the opponent in a bind, right? Because in this situation, they know the only answer to Boseiju is back to basics. So why not just make it so that back to basics is actually really, really bad in every other situation except for when I have exactly Boseiju?
Mm-hmm. So let's see. Looks like we're deciding what to pitch here. I'm kind of on board with it being Brainstorm, as Uro is also a cantrip, and we can actually play it next turn, even though back to basics is likely going to be the play. And okay, no, mind changed, and it is Uro that gets thrown.
I also don't mind pitching the Uro because let's say that the show and tell gets countered here by this Force of Will. We can always untap and just hold up a hard cast Force of Negation as an option too.
Yeah, that's true.
And Uro would go, if we have to tap out for Uro, then we can't do that, and it's a whole mix of things. Now, this is interesting. I guess back to basics is looking like the pitch card here. Do you even bother brainstorming then?
I don't think so. I think I just dump the back to basics because my opponent's showing me two lands that dodge. Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah. This is interesting for sure. And I guess we also have to evaluate what are some of the potential targets that could come into play off the show and tell. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if it's Gristlebrand, we technically have that covered by the Pithing Needle.
Right.
But if it's Omniscience into Cunning Wish, then things certainly do get a little bit trickier.
Yeah, I mean, if this resolves, which it can't really. I mean, at this point, even if there's a Flusterstorm or a Red Blast or something, that would leave 1 card left in hand, which it would have to be a creature.
Yeah,
and it's just done. Yeah, it resolves. I'm not sure why the Petal was used instead of the Misty Rainforest. I guess. Is with Brainstorm last turn, so that means the cards on top of the deck are actually, I was going to say desirable, but no. Oh, it was forced because of the needle? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about that. Sacking the Petal freely. But okay, we move on. 2 cantrips, but no action in Pedro's hand.
Oh, wow. And that's heavy. There's another Brainstorm here, or sorry, another Show and Tell here, which is going to be met with a Brainstorm and
Okay, well, we can get a free Brainstorm. No, keep the Snapcaster in your hand. Oh, okay. I think we wanted to keep the Snap. Oh, never mind. We're gonna Brainstorm. Okay, I feel like that was mismanaged slightly. It probably didn't affect the outcome too much, but we could have either brainstormed again to try and find a force, or kept the Snapcaster in hand because we could have landed it off the show and tell and then flashback a Brainstorm.
Yeah.
So
maybe there's a punish here because there's a Jace the Mind Sculptor involved as well. If we hit the 4th land off the Brainstorm, then that is definitely a plan. I guess in this situation now, it feels like the Miracles player is priced into casting this Brainstorm on EOT to just potentially cycle into the 4th land.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't even know. Gristlebrand drawing 14 cards is never... You never want to be on the other side of that, you know?
Yeah, because even if things do work out and we land our Jason Bounce to Gristlebrand, yeah, we will have nothing left. And their player is stocked up beyond belief, and we don't find the land anyway.
Okay, yeah. And that's going to be... As fast as Game 1 was, Game 2 wraps up just as quickly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we can see how the... Carpet Flowers did not come in here. Oh, so the initial consideration of sideboarding got adjusted slightly when we went to the other list, and Treat stayed in. Okay, I personally would have to say I disagree with that, but all right.
Yeah, it looks like Back to Basics made the cut before the Carpet. Maybe it was consideration of one of those over the other. I can justify Entreat the Angels just in the sense that it is a clock at some point of time. Although it is a very slow clock because it'll take a lot of time to develop your mana and it's a fast clock once it's in play, but it's slow to set up and that sort of stuff. So
yeah,
I definitely understand the reason to keep it in. We'll see if the Carpets come in, but I do appreciate the respect for Boseiju keeping in the Back to Basics. And honestly, this sort of sub game is one of the reasons why the complexity of this format is so, I guess, appealing to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, the first hand had no land, so it definitely has to go. And this one is kind of a nail-biter.
Yeah, I don't like, nobody likes mulling, and nobody likes mulling to 5. But if we're going second, I would go to 5 here. Going first, I think I would keep.
Yeah, it's tricky because if you just analyze how the Sneak and Show player has been playing for the first 2 games, all 3 milliseconds of the first 2 games,
yeah,
we've seen that they want to go fast, right? They are merciless. They want to put you in the position of having it every single time, or so far it seemed like that. And okay, it looks like both players have mulliganed to 6 actually,
right?
But for that reason, like I'd be nervous keeping this hand as the Miracles player.
I don't know if I'm wild about putting Jace back either. Not because we're planning on casting Jace, but because it's a blue card and we don't have any other ones.
That's a pretty good observation, actually. The second Arkham's Astrolabe might not necessarily be as good. I get that it does sort of cycle through your deck, but I don't know if it's like meaningful. We're just like, you know what I mean? We're just pouring mana into what output. That's the...
Yeah. I think putting back Astrolabe or an Island both would have been, in my eyes, a better choice than the Force. But this is what we have. I mean, because I don't feel like I'm particularly attached to having the third land right now, as we don't have anything to do.
Yep.
Anyway,
I guess the other consideration is maybe like the Arkham's Astrolabe does look like a pretty juicy elk to me, and I wonder if the Miracles player is thinking the same here. Maybe a way to like quickly close the game out as fast as possible. Snapcaster's the draw of the Arkham's Astrolabe. Not exactly perfect, but. Oh gosh! This, not like this. Oh my goodness!
This is all like this. Here we go.
Lotus Petal, Show and Tell, on the stack, with an Emerald 2. Oh my God! That's so terrible. Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
We did this last month and it didn't work out well, so just tell me.
Okay. Yeah, true. If we had put the land into play off the Show and Tell, we potentially had outs in drawing Oko, and then the Salty Rubbins is that the Force Wheel was literally the next card, you know what I'm saying? So
I know. I actually feel like putting the land into play was a pretty reasonable decision there. So that's tough, because putting in the Astrolabe, what are we hoping to draw that we can do with 2 mana? I don't know that there is much.
That's a really good consideration.
Another thing is that if we put the land in, then we can actually cantrip the Veil of Summer before we untap.
True.
And have an extra draw. So we actually could have the exact same cards we have in hand, except we could have an extra land in play.
Yeah, that is. But it's easy to say this stuff after the fact.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes, it is.
In the situation.
It may not be entirely fair to say that, but it is something that, when the longer you play, the more experience you have, the more often you'll see these things before they happen instead of afterwards. But so I mean, that's brutal, that's rough. There was turn 2 and turn 1 Show and Tell, and that's it. And that's also one thing that, like, Veil of Summer is such a good card, but it takes up space that several years ago might have been extra Pyroblasts or extra Fluster Storms.
Yeah.
And those cards aren't there anymore. And Veil's great when you have another counter, but it's not the first one. And that's it. That helps decide the match. So Singing Show takes it down. I believe moves up to 4 and no, I'm sorry, this is round 6, 5-1. So looking
close.
Real strong.
Do we know the tournament structure? IDs allowed, and if so, that means that's probably a lock for top 8.
Initial draws are allowed. So so that is likely. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. Congrats to them then. And for the Miracles player, maybe there's a chance that either X2 or I saw there was some murmurs of the Miracles player actually having been undefeated at the moment, so they could potentially also ID into the next round as well if that's the case. But still pretty scary. I don't know. The turn, it is. I remember like years ago when people would complain about Show and Tell, and this is one of the reasons why, right? It's just so explosive sometimes, relentless.
But then also, game 1, it was just, they went for the Show and Tell in turn 2 and it just got crushed.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I think it's okay. I don't think it's bad for the format that there are decks that are like all in. And even Show and Tell's not all in compared to some decks.
Black Red Reanimator, Belcher.
Char Belcher. I played sometime in the last few weeks. I played against Spanish Inquisition.
Oh,
which,
what?
I know that's not a deck you see anymore. And it's I complain about this deck, just its existence to other people. I mean, not in a long time because I haven't seen it in a long time. But just it's like it's basically as all in as Charbelcher, instead of winning the game, you draw 4 cards.
Wait, that sounds like my kind of deck, though.
Yeah, that's what happened in the match I played against it. They're like Spirit Guide, Ritual, Mox, and then I forget the name of what's the draw 4 is I can't remember the name of it.
Contract from Infernal something? Contract from Below?
Maybe. It's 3 black, you draw 4 cards and lose a bunch of life. And it's like, okay, you draw 4, and then your next 4 cards is like some rituals and another Lotus Petal, and then you're done. That?
Yeah, some people like to live life on the edge. I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see that. So I'm kind of curious. Actually, real quick, do we know if we have a backup match?
I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Okay, I was waiting to hear. Yeah, so the backup match is already done, and that was a fairly quick round. So I don't know. Maybe they can drag up another one before we get too into it. I don't want to put them on the spot. They've been doing a great job. We've had backup matches all day today, which is not something we had in the past.
Absolutely. What I can do right now, though, is tell you about Shark Typhoon and why I like that card so much.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up though was I guess now I just feel like I'm like an old crotchety guy on let me teach you a lesson here. But no, for real, Shark Typhoon I think actually changes the game a lot for snow decks. I do encourage you guys to try it out if you get the chance. The real thing is that when you compare Ice-Fang Coatl to Shark Typhoon, both cards actually do a good job at cycling through your deck, right? The floor for Ice-Fang Coatl is you pay 2 mana, you draw a card, you get a 1/1 body. The floor for Shark Typhoon, you cycle for 2 mana, you get a card. And while obviously Ice-Fang Coatl is going to be better when it's at 2 mana, Shark Typhoon is very able to scale and get a lot better over time, right? So imagine if we paid 4 mana for the Shark Typhoon, then we have a 2/2, right? That can't be countered either, which does come up now and then in the Delver matchup.
So at what point? Just generically, at what point is Shark Typhoon better? Because it's not at 4 mana. I don't think a 1/1 Death Touch is a lot better than a 2/2.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Now, it's 6 mana. I'm on board with you. Being a 4/4 flyer is a lot.
Yeah, I actually, the way I see it, it's kind of weird. I have yet to. Whenever I draw Shark Typhoon, the play patterns have always been such that I just never cast it unless I absolutely need to. This just has to go into the construction of the snow deck, as opposed to older decks, right? You have to look at what's in the 2 mana slot. And for me, that's just a bunch of removal. And it's also the core of the deck, which is Sylvan Library. So generally speaking, I try to find other things to do on turn 2. And worst case scenario, I'm either pondering or setting up my mana with Astrolabe, things like that. So, but to answer your question about at what point is the payoff real, I think it's context dependent. So at 4 mana, if I'm playing against Delver, I think it's fine. We can cycle for 4 mana. They can't use a Pyroblast to counter the Shark Typhoon, although they can blast the Shark. But then, it's the same as if, I guess it'd be almost a little bit better than Ice-Fang Coatl because the Ice-Fang Coatl wouldn't draw a card in that situation. If I'm playing what's up?
Oh, I think it's against the blast. Sure. Okay. Yeah. You have a hard time convincing me against Delver, though, because of the ability to pick off a Tarmogoyf. That seems pretty significant to me. But certainly against, for example, any deck with Little Teferi, Shark Typhoon gains just a ton of value.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it gains so much value that I think people just made a deck around that, right? The Standstill decks had Standstill, Shark Typhoon, and Teferi because they all just work so well together. Teferi can bounce Standstill, so you can cast your spells and then redeploy Standstill, and you can Shark Typhoon. That. Yeah. It's a lot of cool, fun stuff. But yeah, I think it scales with the matchup for sure. Ideally, in my mind, I save it as long as possible so that I can actually extract value out of the 6 mana enchantment mode, because I think not only does it give me I was mentioning,
your plan is to hardcast the Shark Typhoon in Legacy.
I kid you not. I have resolved Shark Typhoon for 6 mana more than I have cycled it for its alternate cost.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny if you think about it.
If that's the case, then basically what you're saying is you could win if it was any card, because you're in very good shape at that point. Because you're not tapping out for a 6 mana main phase card if you're not in very good shape.
That's in which case, question.
Couldn't it just be something cheaper, like, I don't know, Venser?
No. It has to be Shark Typhoons, because Venser, as powerful as the card is, it doesn't make sharks. You feel me? Yeah, that's true. Flying sharks. Yeah, that's true. Flying sharks indeed. And you miss out on the meme value. Like imagine just saying
the meme value. Do you know how much meme value this is going to be when I play against you and you cycle for like a 10/10 shark and I venture the shark?
But now I get to say an aerial assault of aquatic animals attacks Joe with such fierce ferocity. You know what I'm saying?
There's no attack. There's just a vapor trail from your previous flying shark that got bounced.
I guess the other reason that I do like it, though, is that if you look at all the other threats, though, that are played in the snow deck, I just feel like Shark Typhoon it's kind of like one of the reasons why Entreat the Angels was so good in Miracles, right? It just goes above and beyond basically what most people are doing right now. Like, it doesn't care about Oko. It doesn't care about Uro. You just go so wide, and it's all like also evasive creatures that you're putting into play that, in my mind, that's kind of how I see it, as like an Entreat the Angels that can cycle. So it's weird that I'm comparing it to Icewind Quaddle, although they do sort of share the same slot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because the low end is the same, where you can cycle it and still draw the card, and that's something the other cards don't have. For the final word in the argument, I think we can go to Garf86 in the chat, who I don't even know if he's responding to this conversation or not, but says, I've seen him play it, it's awful. I assume he's talking about you.
Awful in the sense of it's awful for my opponents because then they right click concede. You feel me? You picking up what I'm putting down?
I feel like there's very little agreement going on in this conversation.
One card though that does work really well alongside Shark Typhoon, and I think is just an all-star right now out of snow decks, is Carpet of Flowers, which for some reason just like randomly went up by. It's really expensive now, so if you have some, congrats for that.
I saw that because I wanted to get I put them, since I'm playing green in my Goblins deck anyway, and I was like, I need help against the Delver matchup. I'll try Carpet of Flowers. And I had two, and I wanted a third one, and it was much more expensive than I expected it to be.
Yeah, it's weird. The price of the card like fluctuated up and down and up and down, and I think it's like it's pretty high right now. But for good reason. I think it's really good against Rug Delver. For any blue deck that is, trying to resolve any reasonable threats, like, go for it. We've seen like TES adopt the card as well as a triple. It's 3 copies in the sideboard. They rely on that card that much. And for good, Rug Delver also just is the de facto Delver deck right now. It doesn't really have a good way to answer Carpet. And once the Carpet is in play, Daze is just automatically turned off. Even Spell Pierce is kind of a liability. But what it also allows you to do is play your own 1-mana counters. For example, from the control perspective, you get access to your Pyroblast, you get access to your Okos a turn sooner, because the Carpet is going to ramp you before you play too.
And that's a card that we didn't see much play until the last. I mean, nearly as much play until the last few years, and it's probably the Astrolabe Snow engine that just added green to so many decks that didn't have before, that led to the explosion in popularity of the card.
Yeah, Simic Summer. While we're talking about 6-mana cards, though, we did mention one 6-mana card that you were interested in playing, the big bad Goblin Grenade. Okay, I know it's Goblin Grandee, but talk to me about. So I don't know if you've talked about this already or not, but the red-green Goblin food chain. Yeah. What is going on here? Dude, where are we?
I'm so in love with this deck. So basically, we have the typical Goblin value engine, but we're supporting it differently. We're not playing Ether Vials. Well, I put in one to try, but not really playing Ether Vials. And it's funny because every single person that sees this, their first question is, how did you decide to cut down to 1 Ether Vial? It's like, no. I cut up to 1 Ether Vial to see if it was even worth playing at all.
Yeah, okay. All right. I looked at that number, and I think this might be like a first in all of the history of Legacy, just playing exactly 1 Ether Vial. Not 2, not 3, not 4. 1.
That was my old slide. I am the metagame. This is just a further example of it. So we have the Goblin value engine. We're not playing Warren Instigator like the first Goblin deck we briefly saw this morning. We are playing Chromox. We have all the value stuff. We have the removal cards, and then we have Food Chain, which just allows Goblin Matron to chain into Goblin Ringleader, into Muxus, into whatever else you pick up along the way, plus Conspicuous Snoop. So every time the deck is shuffled or adjusted, you get a free shot at the top of the deck again to just generate more value. And it's consistently enough. If you have any one of those 11 cards, not counting the Snoop, and Food Chain, a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times, you can just get enough of your deck on the board that you can win the game.
Mm-hmm. That makes
sense. It's very fun to play. I imagine it's kind of hard to play against because a lot of times when you're playing, like if you're a Force of Will deck, you're playing against a deck with 4 Cavern of Souls and some number of Ether Vials, then Force of Will's not so great. You may want to board some out, but you really can't because Food Chain could just blow you to shreds all of a sudden. Yeah,
it's that weird double bind, and I like that. Yeah. I like that you pinch your opponent that way.
Right, and then the sideboarding has been like Hex Steps has been the huge weakness so far, but when I was streaming on Friday the deck, there was a suggestion in the chat that you could try some of those. There's a variety of different green cards printed through history that force sacrifice of flying creatures. And
there was a new one too, right?
Yeah, I think there's a Run Afoul. I think is the newest one. But Clipped Wings, there are a number of different versions of it. Plummet doesn't work because we can't do damage. We have to actually force a sacrifice. Yeah. But that seems like it could work. I haven't actually played the deck since Friday, so I haven't tried it. But currently I basically have 3 spots in sideboard for Merit Lage, and none of them have been effective. And that could work, and it gets around all their protection effects. So that's kind of exciting. Yeah. And also, I'm confident that I'm the only person to ever take Send triplets to the finals of an SCG event.
Wait, but excuse me?
Yeah, I told you. It was in 2000. It was in the sideboard of Cephalids the second time I played it.
Wow.
Because it was a method to shut off their interaction during my turn.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. It never made it into play, but I'm going to say it contributed to the victory or to the second place.
The moral victory, right? Yeah, Open deck list. They see the Send triplets. They shiver in fear. I get it.
But Run Afoul as a way to take down Merit Lage. That would be probably a first, or at least, if someone else did it, they're brave, and congratulations to them. Since we're actually taking some time talking about this, if you're just tuned in, you're wondering what's going on here. Our match finished quickly. Our backup match finished before we even got a chance to go to it. Yeah. And so we're just kind of are taking up some time until we get things progressed in the tournament. So in the chat, someone asking, why not play? Would you play Squee? And that's also been asked a few times. It's a card that I didn't even think about until it started getting asked about it. And I think it's unnecessary. It's something there. All the creatures in the deck are either they find other creatures, they're some form of removal, they give haste, or they're Goblin Lackey. That's all the creatures. And Squee, it generates infinite mana with Food Chain, but I don't think we need infinite mana. I think the way the deck plays out, we exile a lot of our own creatures to build up our board, but there's enough left over that it's enough to win. And so something like that, where if you draw it on its own, it's terrible. And the deck needs to be able to function without Food Chain in play, and Squee just really would not contribute to that. So that's kind of where the deck's at. If you try it out, I am super in love with the deck. So it's definitely worth. It's a little raw. The combo sideboard cards are not ironed out, but it's a good time.
Okay. Yeah, no, for sure. And what I also appreciate the most is that this is just. There's no way to go around. This is innovative. I like it. It's new. It's not tested okay. If I had to guess, this is also like close to something like that you could even see in Vintage, right? With like Food Chain, Goblin Recruiter, and maybe like Conspicuous Snoop to just draw your whole deck kind of deal. So like, it definitely we know that the power level is there.
The shell, like their Food Chain Goblins did exist before Goblin Recruiter was banned in Legacy, 10 years ago or whatever that was. And I actually looked because I was like, okay, Muxus allows there's so much card advantage of Goblins. With Muxus in the board now, or in the format, and I want to try this with Food Chain. Let me find a previous Food Chain deck, because back when I was first starting to play Legacy, Food Chain Goblins, I remember actually it was probably extended when Food Chain Goblins existed with Recruiter. But either way, I went back and there were Food Chain Goblin posts from like 2010. It's like, well, a few things have changed between now and then, but
just a couple things,
yeah. So in particular the sideboard. If you told a Legacy player who has no experience with Goblins, okay, let's make a Food Chain Goblins deck, the main deck would come up somewhat similar to what I have. A lot of that is not particularly innovative. But the sideboard is taking some work, and that's not something you can go back 10 years and take someone's previous sideboard It just it has no bearing on the current metagame. So you really have to start over there. But it's been fun.
And, I could definitely see it for sure. Yeah. Incoming tribal decks by WotC for legacy starters, Sharks versus Goblins or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of my Goblins, like Ringleader creates card advantage, Matron tutors, Warchief gives haste. You've got like Voracious Hydra, which is the 5-mana flash shark that counters a creature when it's on the stack.
What?
And Shark to Crab, which is a 4-mana what's that? Amplifiers. I don't remember the mechanic name where it can like get bigger and tap a guy down for a turn. I think I'm ahead of you.
You know what? I'm gonna have to think about this. Maybe the aquatic squad's gonna have to get a little bit of knock. WotC, hello?
You know what? We don't even need. Well, I will grant you another creature type. You're aquatic. I'll give you sharks, and then you can add starfish. How about that? Because there are numerous starfish in Magic. You can have your choice of starfish to finish out your shark deck, and then we'll take it on versus goblins.
The petition for Leviathan, please. They seem a little bit more intimidating than starfish. Speaking of starfish, I'm not a SpongeBob expert myself, but apparently the Patrick Star Show got announced. So if you really do like starfish, there you might get your fill there. So that's pretty interesting. I have no idea
what you're even just talking about.
Really?
No.
Oh, Dad, that's
I'm
okay.
older than you. SpongeBob SquarePants was not something that I was into when I was little. I'm too old for that. What I did get a kick out of, though, was a few weeks ago, one of the original creators asked on Twitter, what's your rank of Disney afternoon cartoons? And I was all over that.
Ooh, okay. What did you? I'm just curious. Hit me with like maybe the 2 or 3 in your top 5.
Well, Tailspin was a big one. Tailspin, Darkwing Duck, and Goof Troop.
Wait, is that how does it go? How does the opening go? Do you remember?
Yes.
Did you hit us with that karaoke, Joe?
No, I cannot. But I remember the opening is I don't sing, but I'm remembering from I'm not good with song lyrics, but I basically remember it was like out of night and mystery, champion of like light, sweeps out other shadows, Darkwing owns the night. Pretty sure.
Okay, I could see it. All right. Petition for karaoke Joe in the chat. But before we do that,
somewhere some villain schemes by his numbers up.
You're definitely just reading off Google now. I can tell.
No, dude. I have this. Okay, so summing up where we're at in the event, as we're going to have a good time here. We're in round 6. We are our match is finished. We had 3-game match, but it was a slaughter. All 3 games, one side got crushed for the most part. The backup match apparently was just as bad, and so they'll let us know momentarily how many matches are remaining, and that is my subtle cue for them to now tell me. Yeah. as we try to have covert communications between us and the staff that you all can't hear, and yet it didn't work because I'm hearing nothing. So we got a couple matches still playing. I think we're probably going to step away in a moment or run a commercial break. I'm going to be back in a couple minutes. Maybe we'll have a little more information about our upcoming series that we're announcing periodically throughout the day before we unveil the whole thing before the top 8 starts. But 6 rounds in the books, 1 more to go, plus the top 8. Anurag will be here with me the rest of the day. So